17th Jan. So I knew, I didn't skip December. He said he was born in December 1st. Charity, how are you doing? Hi, people. Where is Safaricom? Are you okay? The network is bad today. Where is UTL? Yeah? Where are our birthday girls? I know there was Martha, Josephine. No, Josephine wasn't. Martha. Who are they? Where are the birthday girls? Oh yeah, Mariam, right? Yeah, Maureen. Yeah, sorry, I knew it was an M name. Please come here in the middle. We said we are supposed to do something for you today, but I hope you're okay. Where is the third person? Oh yeah, please come, Madam President and everyone. We have to greet the president especially, and you. Your birthday is every day. Okay. Charlotte, could you please help us share HiPipo TV link so we can go live? Please come here in the middle. So yesterday we didn't fail, but we had a challenge that did make the vibe we wanted to have, not so? The dance challenge. So there is a new team that registered for the hackathon, and it's a team of dancers. Yeah. There's a new team, so I hope they reach here early enough so that we can have a challenge this morning before you get too serious with the MVPs. Hey Beth, you okay? So, I know we are living in a world of so much diversity, but I'm also thankful to God that we are having a hackathon with representation from more than 8 countries, and I'm happy we are coming to this day. I hope you've learned something. I hope, Have you learned something? Me, I've learned so much, and please come this side. Yeah. So, we just want to disturb you. Where is the birthday boy, Alien Skin? Yeah. So, where's DJ Mark? Yeah, he's going to get off camera. So, but you're fine. I'm sure you're the finest human beings that live in Uganda. Evelyn, are you okay? Okay. So our facilitators are not here, but Paul is here. I wanted to thank everyone for making sure. No, it's fine. I'm just thanking you, Paul, to thank everyone that is making time to be a part of these conversations. I hope we stay connected after this hackathon. Yeah, I hope we stay connected and keep talking on ways how we can make ourselves better every other time. And I hope every one of you can achieve their dreams. DJ Mark. So we have a new team that registered last night. They were allowed specially. Yeah, and they are going to do a challenge, a money bags challenge. Yeah. Yeah. They are going to do a money bags. Is the link in the group? Have you all subscribed to HiPipo TV and NGTV? Okay. So now what will happen after 2 months of us launching, probably every month we shall give out a scholarship on HiPipo TV. Yeah, so tell whoever you know on HiPipo TV and NGTV, yeah? Every month for the rest of time, as long as we are living in this world, every month we shall have maybe a scholarship to some place. Yeah, so Nunu, please come this side. Yeah, so we have a team of dancers and creatives. They are also fintech. So we want to challenge everyone. And whoever can challenge them after will take some prize. Yeah? We want them to challenge you. Yesterday you failed to challenge us. Hey. So we call her the stage queen, stage boss, eh? Okay. Yeah, I've known her all the time. We've been serving the music industry as probably the best dancer we ever see around. Eh? But she also decided to register and be a part of the participants of the 4th Women in FinTech Hackathon. Eh? Yeah? Isn't it cool? Yeah. So for those of you who didn't know how to dance, today we are teaching you. I'm also going to be learning a little bit. Yeah? Okay. So we're going to have a challenge for about 9 minutes. 2 minutes and a half at a time, and then you tell us what you think. DJ Mark.
Life is financially simplified. Skins in answer to Kira Bazongo. TikTok bagobe bali mbuwambi. Play tukadde 10 awe tutusaawo. iPhone ye phone ebirala telefoni. Flight ku flight akanyonyi katukuba. Katonde abawaye atuma. Mugira mukolima. Emmoloka etasusa 5 kimerementi. The night is still young. Wait a pop more champagne. Ngenda Maldives ku breakfast. Tewali bakuyita Richard Wakabi. Oli wealthy wizard malanga. Fortune is separate. Wakolamu wachikuba wamalayo. Anti-money bags in Zabimala. Bad yoga. I make money. Neyagare. Saving naye bwezigwawo bwotyo ojjaloga wenna togambwako otamidde kyokka ate ng'ovuga bakugamba naakamulwadde kyokka ate olumye toyambadde bakuyita Richard olina kaki oli wealthy wizard kyekyomanyi fortune is separate ate good separate mbuwanyirira kabakamu anti-money bags nze abimala I make money, life is financially simplified. Mukadde omubuuzaako tekirwaza eyesiga Mukama osaba kofa.
Isn't that cool? So we're going to have them back after a few minutes. Do you like it? Yeah. Yeah. Is it better than the cake you would have? I think it is cool, not so? So they were dancing for the birthday girls. Huh? You like it? The win. Yeah? No, they are going to get back. Eh? That was just a sample of how good. I think they are very cool, not so? So do they take the money bags title or we retain it? Huh? Are you happy? Yeah? What shows that you're happy? You're all smiling. Now you should dance for us now. Do you want them to dance for you again? Please come here. We're not going. Happy said we shouldn't make birthday girls dance yesterday. So, what wish do you have, Madam President? Make a wish.
do we want? No. Okay. The only problem is that we're in all different teams, but we want to win. That's the wish. Thank you so much.
Happy birthday, ladies. No, please. DJ Mark. Yeah. We are doing the last bit, level 1 project. Happy birthday, ladies. Please go and enjoy. So now for the next one, let us all support from the beginning. Not so? Yeah. Let us cheer them up.
Life is financially simplified. Skins imyansa tukira abazungu TikTok bagobe bali mbuwambi play tukadde 10 awe tutusaawo iPhone ye phone ebirala telefoni flight ku flight Mubuuzaako tekirwaza eyesiga mukama osaba kufa.
The second one was for all of you, for being a great team. So, very excited to have you all, and we are one big family now. When you find us somewhere, tell everyone those are my people. And when we find you somewhere, we will tell people that we are your people. Not so? So, I hope every one of you, like we started last week, with the conversation of all of us winning, I hope every one of you wins whatever you want to win. The wins are not going to only be about who is going to be announced as the best 3 or best 5. The wins are about all of us leaving this place and pursuing our dreams more than ever before. The dream should be us learning how to leverage tools like Level 1 Project, Moja Loop, and being the best we can ever be as entrepreneurs, as businesswomen and men, as innovators and everything you want to be. And the only thing I can personally do for you today is pray for you and tell you that you're going to make it, no matter how hard, yeah? Sometimes the going really gets so hard. But when it gets hard, remember there is someone who started KFC and only made it when he was 76, yeah? And then there is someone who has been working for the last 20 years, but they have never made a single coin from what they are doing, but they still believe it will make sense. So it will make... So I think I will not have any chat with any one of you apart from the side conversations from today, maybe until end of tomorrow. But I hope you all use this time to get your MVPs ready and then to read as much as you can and be as happy as happy. Eh? Happy wave to everyone. Everyone should know. Stand up and wave to everyone. Sumaya, where are you, Sumaya? Yeah. Salam alaikum. Please come. You thought I'd forgotten. Yeah? You thought I'd forgotten? Yeah, I don't forget anything. Beth, please also come. So, I know all of us at different stages of whatever we're doing. So, this is a commercial break. She's leading the team from Kenya, so I would want her to use this 1 minute to talk about what she does as a company, and also I will request all of us that today at midday, as you're going for lunch, she will share something in the group and we all share about what she does. Isn't that good enough? Will you do it? I don't promise and don't do it, because I'll be following everyone. So we all share about her. Eh? We can even create a circle of sharing only our content, not money. That every time we have a day for sharing about one of us. So when we are all done, we go back around and share. So, Beth, please, in 1 minute.
Good morning, everyone. Beth Joroga is my name from HiPipo. We are fintech app which we are trying to bring sanity to people as they lend money and they borrow from one another. And in most cases, we find that people don't return back the money they have borrowed, maybe because they forgot or they assume that I don't need to repay that money. And so our app is here to help people have a contract between the borrower and the lender in an essence of reminding them that I owe you, you owe me, and then you need to pay. And that will help us to grow in this financial world and ensure that everybody play their part wherever they are. So we are grateful as we launch this app and looking forward to ensure everybody enjoy the journey of knowing where their money is. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth, please. Sumaya is an entrepreneur, right? She's a content creator. And then she told me about what she does yesterday. Like I said, everyone, if you're doing something, if you're rearing rabbits like I used to do, please come and tell us you rear rabbits. I made a lot of money from rabbits. And then I also made a lot of money from selling scrap. So if you are doing something, let us know so we can shine a spotlight on what you're doing. So Sumaya runs a channel on YouTube based in Bahara, and it is growing. Probably she'll find time and feature all of you, team by team, not so? And I thought it was only justice that I share with you and tell you about what she does. But because she's here, let her tell you in a minute.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Like he said, I'm Sumaya Nalukwago, and I run a tech YouTube channel, Take Over with Sumaya. I've met some of you and I've interviewed some of you before. And I upload non-coding tech content ranging from tech events, tips, hacks, inspirational talks, how you can get jobs in tech, and so much more. That is it.
What else do you want to say? Yes, please. Okay. So Sumaya was also nominated for an African award. She knows the award. Let's congratulate her. Yeah? Congratulations for your nomination. It's beautiful that we get nominated over and over again. The same way we're all nominated. I mean, we had so many teams wanting to be a part of this conversation, but we couldn't afford to have all of them. And you, the cream, came through. Yeah. So congratulate yourselves as well. If that is how you congratulate yourself, you'll have trouble. Yeah. Somebody tell us about the award.
So as nominated in the Women in Tech Network Global Awards, I'm the only Ugandan. These are female awards. And I'm requesting for your votes. You vote by, I shared the link yesterday in the group. So you tap that link, then it will take you to a web page with my picture. You scroll down to the sentence, vote by sharing, then you will tap on the share button and share to any platform of your choice. Voting is by you sharing to those platforms. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Maya, please. Thank you for coming through. We congratulate you and everyone, and we thank you for being a very great team. And without adding anything to those so many words, allow me welcome Paul Baker, all the way from London. Yeah. Paul, and we thank you so much for making time, Paul, and making this happen.
Great, really happy to be here, and I don't know how I'm going to follow that show. That was quite something. I'm just going to set up my computer because I think this should be a technical session. So I want to answer questions that you guys got in your build. If you got any problems, I want to answer those. And then I've got something prepared about going through the detailed sequence diagram of a PASP flow, because some of you are interested in, how does this I'm making these 3 different calls to initiate the transfer. What does that mean in the rest of Mojaloop? So I'm going to take you through that in detail, and it's a good insight into how we think about and design workflows inside Mojaloop. Thanks. Okay, so let's start with a recap of the PISP simulator, sandbox that we're going to be using to run against this, run your code against in this hackathon. I've had this talk with a lot of you guys already and explained it, but I'm a little concerned that I've missed out, guys, so I want to do it again with everyone involved so that you can understand what needs to happen. So in this diagram I've got 2 parts, and in your test set we've got 2 parts that you involved in the PISP. The first part is transfers, making the transfer, and the second one is linking. It's really important that you do the transfers one. So I would start there, integrate with the transfers, get the transfers working, because that shows the integration with your software and the POC element of it. You can assume in your software that the account linking was done up front. So the account linking is done once, maybe a year, or once every 2 years, so it doesn't happen that often. It is a fundamental part of setting up a PISP relationship, but it doesn't, as part of a POC to demonstrate your concept, your product concept, it's not as important as the transfers. So start with the transfers. And in the transfers, we've got 3 elements to it. The one is to do the lookup, and then the other one's initiate the transfer, and then approve the transfer. So I know some of you have seen this already, so this is the test runner. I hope all of you have got it running on your PC. This is I actually just want to repeat this. I know I've repeated it a few times. Sorry? Oh, okay. Okay. I need to move. Okay, so let me just zoom in. So a quick recap. There are 2 in the Docker Compose sandbox that you deployed. There are 2 TTKs. There's the receiver TTK and the sender TTK. The sender TTK you're going to be replacing with your software. So your solution is going to be calling in on port 4040, and we will no longer need to run or use the sender TTK once your integration has been built. The sender TTK is an example of the calls that you need to make in your software to call. The receiver TTK is our simulator, and it's got a set of fixed rules, and I'm going to show you how to update those rules. So the port number 6060 is the receiver TTK, and here is the link. I'm just going to open it. And how we use this is we put it in monitoring mode so that we can see the messages coming in. And this is our sender TTK. And like I said before, the transfer flow are the important ones. So let me, if I edit the transfer flow and click send, it might be a good idea to follow along if I haven't gone through this with you before and you don't understand what's going on. That executing those 3 phases on the transfer resulted in 3 queries being called: the party lookup, the initiate transfer, and then the approval of that transfer. In the monitoring screen, you can view those messages, both the request and the response. Now what we want to do is we want to have those same calls being made from your software, and the way we do that is we use Postman. Well, the way I'm going to demonstrate it is using Postman. So if we go to the sender TTK, and we've got a curl command at the bottom of this request. If we copy that curl command, are you guys following what I'm doing? Okay, good. Please ask questions at any time if you're not quite following. I don't know why my computer's so slow. There we go. So if I import that curl command, there is a mistake when that curl command, when you import it, is this TTK receiver backend is the wrong name of the computer. So I'm going to update that to localhost. Now if I send that command through, in fact let me do that again. So this is the receiver, the localhost 6060. If I send that command through, I will see the response here. And what it has come back with is the account lookup results, which is at the moment Justin Trudeau. Now the other thing I've been telling everyone to do is to, this is a simulator and it's based off some static response rules. So if you go to the 6060 and you go to the static response rules, you will see the rules that it's using to give you those responses. And it might make sense in your POC demonstration to customize that to make a better POC. And in fact, you're going to have to do that because what's installed by default has the wrong currencies. So, for example, the get party lookup that I've just called, this is the fixed response rule, and we can edit that and then change the names. But let me change one that's more relevant. So if we go to the sync response rules and I go to the initiate transfer, I've updated these to have the right currency, but 10 Ugandan shillings doesn't make any sense. So let me update those amounts. So I can come in here and change that to 10,000 Ugandan shillings. 10,000 Ugandan shillings, and save that. And then if I go back to the monitoring screen and to the sender and run through the transfers again, then in the initiate call, I will find that my response has now got the correct values coming back. So your application is going to make these calls, and then it's going to get that response back. What I'm saying is that we can use these synchronized response rules to customize that response to make it relevant for your demonstration. So minimum that you need to do to get this integration to work is to make sure you call those 3 REST API calls, and then customize the response so that you get a relevant response for your demonstration and your integration. If you need access to the API documentation, you go to the API management at the bottom on the left, and you click on the third-party SDK output, and you go to the documentation. The first one here is a health check, but if you go to the third-party requests, these are the 3 calls that need to be made for transfers. So there's your lookup party request, and there are some examples here as well. So if you prefer, you can use the API documentation to configure your code to make those REST API calls. Is everyone happy with that? Okay. Could you follow along what I was doing? I'm happy to come around and help you get through that if you're not getting to this phase. It's really important today that you're able to run this so that you can include it into your demonstrations. Okay. Okay. So next, there's 2 aspects that I would like to cover today. This is supposed to be a technical session, so please feel free to ask questions as we go along, and that is why it is a bit more technical. A lot of you guys asked me on the first couple of days about Moduloop, because we're deploying a simulator here. We're not deploying a full version of Moduloop. So if you're interested in deploying a full version of Moduloop, how could you go about it? Or you want to scale it up a bit more? I'm going to get Charlotte to share this presentation with you guys. I've put in some links and some guides to help you through it. So I just want to show you that it's here. I'm not going to dwell too much on it in the talk. Okay. There are 3 types of people who need access to Moduloop. The first one is the product owner. So this tends the product owners are still fairly technical inside Moduloop. They deal with the APIs and the sequence of the APIs and what is sent in the API and what is that contract, but they don't often get involved in writing code. So we have a whole lot of people, sort of product owner type roles inside the community. A lot of people using that role. I guess I'm one of them. What we offer to those product owners is a view into exploring the API. So understanding the API. And the reason why that's important is because product owners think of product solutions that they want to build, and they want to know, can I use Moduloop to do that? it's a good question. I want to do it to do this. Will ModuLoop do it? And the details in the API. Can I send that information through? What sort of response am I going to get? What are the different flows? So there is. So we often use the testing toolkit, and we got a payment manager on premise to help integrate. The payment manager on-premise deployment is specifically to help people build integrations. So I guess that's less product ownery, or maybe it is. So to build integrations into ModuLoop as a DFSP. So it's not PASP focused at all at the moment, but this hackathon sandbox is probably a better view into the PASP. But as a DFSP, these links are appropriate. If you're a developer and you're wanting to run a ModuLoop and maybe make a contribution into a ModuLoop, so you want to run parts of ModuLoop in the background, there are a couple of ways of doing that. The first one is using the testing harness. So our testing harness is a Docker Compose version of ModuLoop. So ModuLoop's designed to run on Kubernetes, but as all of you guys see, you can just run the Docker images on a single machine using Docker Compose as well. And it's often simpler and easier to configure and easier to interact if you're not familiar with Kubernetes. If you're familiar with Kubernetes and you want to run it on your own machine, then you can use Miniloop. We got a link here to Miniloop. Miniloop's a great way of deploying ModuLoop with all the Docker images in place and then working with Kubernetes. So if you're familiar with Docker Compose and not Kubernetes, use the testing harness. If you want to learn more about Kubernetes, then use Miniloop. What I haven't put here is Helm. So if you want to deploy it into, let's say, a Kubernetes environment that you've set up locally on a machine, then you don't need a tool. We've got Helm. And our releases are on Helm. You can just deploy that Helm directly into that Kubernetes environment and then configure it how you need it. Okay, then if you're scaling up and you want to add in security, so adding in security is a big step. There's a lot more that has to happen. You've got to have gateways set up. You've got to have the security being checked and validated. So we've got a different set of tools for that. So unfortunately, ModuLoop is complicated, so that's why there's lots of different ways of interacting with it, depending on what you're trying to get out of that interaction. So we've got something called infrastructure as code, which is based off Terraform, and designed to be loaded into GitLab. So GitLab is a GitOps approach to hosting a deployment environment. What GitOps is it uses Git. So it uses the control system and the history and so the same way that we treat our code, you can have those same controls in place to update your environment. So it's really nice for a productionized environment to be aligned with Git. So you have full traceability of anything that changed on your environment and full repeatability. So you can rerun that same Git environment on a new environment, or you can stand it down and put it up again. So the idea is what's represented in your repository is a reflection of what's running in your environment. And the reason why this becomes important is half of the complexity of ModuLoop is around how you configure your environment. So half of it's the application, and the other half is the environment. So don't underestimate. It's about configuration and setup and all your security is around how well you do your environment as well. So having a repeatable way of deploying and executing an environment, a productionized environment, is key. And so we use IAC and GitOps to doing that. At the moment, there are various flavors of the IAC. Currently, by default, it runs on Amazon Cloud Services, but there's no reason why it's always going to be Amazon. We do have guys currently working on creating an on-premise version of it, and also a managed services provider that could run on other clouds as well. So there's a lot of work in the community. I've got a new mic. Thank you. Okay, so any questions about the environments and Mojaloop? I think it was a wise choice to just use the simulator for the hackathon because it's really quite a lot of effort to stand up those environments, and I want you guys working on your solutions, not worried about trying to run Mojaloop. So that's why we chose the simulator. But then after this hackathon, if you want to take it further and you want to understand more about how to connect to, those links are going to be useful. So are you guys ready for the technical deep dive into PISP? Okay, I'm seeing some nodding of heads. So we use sequence diagrams all the time in Mojaloop to sort of describe how to do that. So if you're not familiar with a sequence diagram, the way it works is we have the different parties or the different microservices or the different people listed at the top, and we have a line drawing down their involvement. And then the way to read it is from the top to the bottom. So at the top, those are the actions that happened in the beginning, and then as we go lower down, those actions happen later. We have these blurbs where we can add in some more detailed information about the information that's been passed through. So this is not a technical, detailed one. It's fairly technical, but it's designed to help describe it. So we don't have, for instance, the error cases mapped here. We just got the happy path flow, and the data that I'm showing on the side here is the data that's relevant to help the discussion and the understanding about how this flow works. So so what have we got at the top here? What are the players? We've got a payer. We've got the third party. That's the PISP, and that's your guys' software. So I've combined it slightly, so we don't have just your payer, the API call that you guys are calling. We've got the output of that from that SDK, third-party SDK scheme adapter API calls. So when you're making that get parties lookup call, in fact, the output of that is our get parties FSP IOP call. So I've just represented it from that point of view. And then we've got the payer DFSP, that is the account institution in which you've linked to. So that might be Airtel or MTM, mobile money, and it's from that account that we're going to be making the payment. Then we've got Mojaloop. That's a central service, and also running inside Mojaloop we've got authentication service that's sitting centrally. Using that service is optional based on how the configuration is done, and also then how that those challenges and signing those challenges, sort of doing the PASP authentication, is managed through that centralized service. And then on the right side, we've got our payee FSP, which is the institution that's going to be receiving the money and then distributing that money out. So we initiate a payment from your software. So there's an action that happens, and then suddenly we need to initiate the payment. Then we need to do the get parties call. So the way that flow works is the get parties call goes to merge loop. In fact, what I'm missing from here is merge loop then consults an Oracle, works out which institution that you're talking to, so it looks up the pay FSP, and then forwards on your call, the get parties call, through to the pay DFSP. On this side, you then look up the account, get that account information, and then return with a put parties callback. So we get a put parties callback, and that has got that account information in. So that mock response that we got with the Justin Trudeau, that really originally comes from the payer DFSP on let's say Airtel or whichever DFSP that we connected to. And then that put parties callback is forwarded on back to the third party FSP, which is you guys, and then you get that message. So that synchronous response that we're giving you, so these are asynchronous calls. So let me tell you a little bit details on the sequence diagram. If it, in fact, I haven't followed protocol, so I'm going to skip it. Okay, so these calls are asynchronous calls. So you make the call, you get a response saying, I will get back to you. I haven't represented it here, but the HTTP call comes back with a 202 saying, yes, I've received your message. And then it responds later on with a put call back saying, here's the information that you asked for. What we do in the SDK scheme adapter in your sync response rules is we tie those two messages together and we give you one synchronous response back into your backend API. So, that's why we use the SDK scheme adapters. Just makes that integration into your system so much easier. So the next phase is the agreement phase. So this is where you set up that agreement. It's agreement phase, but it starts off with the initiation of your transfer. So the initiation of a transfer is really, it's all this information that we got here, which is the DFSP's account, the type of transfer that you want to do. You want to send the money or receive that total. Gives you the total amount, and then you initiate that. So this information then gets passed through. It goes through to merge loop, and from merge loop back to the payer DFSP. So this is the organization that you've got that trust relationship established from the account linking. And it then receives this request to transfer the money. So the first thing it does is it looks up that consent to see if you've in fact got that trust relationship established, and it validates it, saying, yes, I have a relationship with my sender payer, and it's all in good standing, and I'm allowed to process this transfer. It then generates a transaction ID, and then initiates, it returns that back to you saying, to the PSP saying, I've received this, I acknowledge your request to send this transfer. Then generates a quote ID and initiates a merge loop quote phase. This is the quote phase, really the agreement, so it sets up the agreement. So it sends this message to merge loop, who then forwards it on to the payer FSP, and the pay FSP then looks it up, checks that your accounts are valid, and then calculates the fees, and then returns the result through Mojaloop back to the payer FSP. So whenever you see this pass straight through Mojaloop, the reason why nothing is being changed inside Mojaloop is because the message is staying exactly the same, and it's done that so that we can do that JWS validation and make sure that we are in fact talking to the end participant that we claiming to talk to. So now you come back with a quote. So the DFSP, the payer DFSP sending the money has got that quote. It then generates a challenge. So normally the recommendation for generating that challenge is it takes information from the transfer, so who's it going to and the amount and who it came from, and then it encrypts it with their private key. And that challenge ends up being really a long string of nonsense, but it's very specifically related to your transfer. So it's going to be changing every time during that transfer. It then returns that challenge back to the PISP. So in your response back here, you've done the discovery, so you know who it is, and then you've now got the quotes, and you know that transfer can proceed. So you got the fees and the total. So in that call that we this is the return of the initiated transfer call that we've got in the synchronous response. So this is the information that's back in your system, and now you can ask the payer to proceed with that transfer. And then if the payer accepts those terms and signs the challenge, and if it's a FIDO authorization, it would be a fingerprint. If it's a one-time PIN, then you would be typing in that one-time PIN that you got from the payer DFSP. So you give authorization to proceed with that transfer. That authorization then responds with a put authorizations. So the payer DFSP, if you follow this flow here, the payer actually is asking the PISP for authorization for this. So it initiates it with a post authorization, you get the response back, and then you respond with a put authorization by giving your signed challenge and the message that you are happy to proceed with the transfer. So that put authorization is then received. So the signed challenge gets received. The payer DFSP, the person initiating that payment, gets the signed challenge. So now they can check that is in fact a valid challenge and that you've met the challenge. And there's two ways that can happen. They can happen centrally inside Mojaloop, inside the switch. So if you've configured the switch to use the centralized authorization system, and the one that comes standard with Mojaloop is FIDO, so check your biometrics, etc. Then it would forward that message through to the centralized server, and they would validate that you've met the credentials. And then it would come back with a true or false. Or the other option is you don't have it hosted centrally in Mojaloop, and then the DFSP itself needs to do that validation. So most banks and institutions have a way of validating that is the end user, that there is a one client, and that would basically, so it's not modeled as part of Mojaloop, it's what we call outer band. You would do that validation, the DFSP would do its own validation to check that is that is in fact the end user. Then at this point we have validated the request, and we built that trust relationship up between the payer. So in other words, there's a three-way trust relationship that is built in the PASP. We've got the payer, the client, initiating the transfer, and we've checked that it is in fact that person. We've also validated the PASP. So we validated that it is the fintech that we set up and configured that trust relationship with, and then the DFSP, who's going to initiate the payer, has also been validated. So all the parties are happy with the other parties in the chain. Because this trust relationship has been now established through validation of their signed consent, because to get the signed consent, we had to involve the payer and the PISP, and we had to have that trust relationship initiated and set up through the account linking, and we've now got the signed challenge through all those people. It means that we are now happy that we are dealing with all the parties concerned, so we now can proceed with the transfer. So the way we proceed with the transfer is we generate a transfer ID, and then we do a post-transfers, and that then goes through to the payee DFSP, who can then distribute the funds. And then we get a put transfers back, which is your encrypted ILP fulfillment. So remember that that encryption mechanism that we borrow from cryptocurrencies. We get the release of the funds from the payers from the payee DFSP, and they send that back using your put transfers. We then use this patch third-party request transaction message to update the PASP and let them know that the transfer has been completed and the funds have been delivered to the end client. And on the response of that last call that you've got, that then comes back. So the third-party SDK scheme adapter then responds with the last call to say that confirmed, we've sent that message. So this is all really very technical, but essentially there's three calls, and those same three calls are the ones that you are interacting with, which is get parties. In this diagram, I've combined the two calls together. In your implementation, you've got three calls. So the first one is get parties. The second one is the initiate transfer, which then triggers this part and comes back with present the challenge to the user, synchronized response, and then the last part of it is the payer signs a challenge, and then it gets back that final message to say that yes, the transfer happened. So we are just simulating these responses, but behind the scenes, what's happening in Mojaloop is all of that detail. Are there any questions? Was that useful? Okay, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So my question is, most of us have already set it up to that page of seeing the monitoring and tested in Postman. But now my question is, which exact API are we supposed to hit in our solutions? Because you find we have the initiation API, we have the one for lookup, and the one for discovery. Now, which exact API are we supposed to connect to make sure that Mojaloop is interacting with our solutions?
So that sandbox that I gave you on the first day, that's the only thing that you need to do in the hackathon here, is you need to do those three calls, and those are the API. What I'm doing here is showing you what happens behind the scenes. So you need none of this knowledge to be able to integrate your software into the hackathon. What you need is these three calls: the account lookup, the initiate transfer, and the approval transfer. And those are the messages that we over here. These three calls that we got in that account lookup, that IP address, the 16060, the send transfer. These are the API calls that you need to make in your software. Did I answer your question?
Yes, somehow, but I've not yet gotten it well. So we have that set up, the way it is there on the screen. We already have that set up. Now, are we supposed to hit all those different APIs, lookup, initiation, and approval in our solutions? And how do we do that? Or setting up that is enough?
No, this is the sender, TTK. You need to make those calls in your software. So, if we go back to this diagram, so this in that sandbox deployment, we got two TTKs. We got the receiver TTK, which is a simulator to simulate all that stuff that I was telling you about now. So the way we simulating it is you make an API call to the local host 4040, and there's three calls you need to make. There's the get parties lookup, the initiate transfer, and then the acceptance on the transfer. So your solution needs to be making that call to that localhost 4040, and then our TTK receiver is going to simulate that response back. And so that's what you need to do in your software. What I'm showing you is this guy, the sender, the 16060, and it's doing what your software needs to do. So you need to replace it with your calls, the way I tried to demonstrate it earlier is you copy the curl commands here, and I imported that into Postman, but you need to import that into your software. You need to be making the same calls inside your software, if you see those responses inside the monitoring screen. So for instance, we went through that earlier. I imported that curl into Postman. If that is your software making the call, it would look like this in the monitoring screen. So the monitoring screen would then respond with the information as if you were making a call to Mojaloop. And that's all you need to do. That abstraction layer that we've got in the SDK that we're simulating here can work in production. So you could take that same integration that you're building right now, and you could install it against a third-party scheme adapter that's been configured with full security against a productionized environment with all the keys and secrets that are yours, that you're looking after, and we could integrate your software into a productionized system. So although this feels like a very thin simulated demonstration, because it is, it can actually, that same solution can scale into a productionized system. And then the consequence of that interaction is that full sequence diagram that I demonstrated earlier. Did I answer your question? Okay, great, thank you. Sorry, I just need to grab some sweets. I'll come and answer your. Please ask your question. I'm just going to.
I just need you to go back to the part where you changed the currency from Ugandan shillings from euros to Ugandan shillings, and 10 to 10,000.
So you want me to show you again how to make those edits onto the synchronous response rules? Okay, great, I'll do that now. Okay, so it's important that you open up the right TTK. So you've got to have your Docker Compose running with that sandbox running, and you need to go to the 6060. 6060, because that's the receiver TTK, and that is your simulator that you're going to be sending a message. The messages to. The port that you're sending the messages to is the 4040. So if we have a look at this diagram, we've got the 4040 here. That's the API that you're talking to. And then on the receiver side, we've got the 6060. It has got synchronized rules that's going to be responding back. And this is how you can edit those rules. So last time we edited the initiate transfer rule. Let's have a look at some of the others. Oh, that's actually not very interesting. Let's re-edit the initiate transfer one. So, are you following along? Did you go to the right place? So, synchronized response rules. That's this one here. And then you have a list of rules. Those rules are executed in sequence from the first one to the second one. So it looks to see if the first one's appropriate. If it isn't, then it runs the next one. If it isn't, it runs the next one. So if you understand this more and you want a more detailed response, you can create a new rule, sort of lower down or higher up. And what happens is the API call comes on the 4040. It then starts at the top and it finds the relevant rule and then responds back with this fixed response. And what you can do then is just go into this and then edit your currency. So let's add a fee of 500 UGX, and then you need to save that rule. And then if we resend those messages, we can go back to, sorry, I caught it in time. Oh no, I didn't. So we can go back and resend the messages from that sender TTK in the same way that your software would make that call. And then we can see the response with the rules. If I go back to this, do you see that piece of information? Request params ID, that is responding. So if you want to cater the fixed response with information that you're sending. So for instance, the receive amount is got nothing to do with what you asked it to. So it's maybe a little bit silly. You could in fact update that with by sending back the original amount that you sent, and maybe you could add a little margin on top of that to make it more realistic for your simulation if you wanted to. And you can use that same syntax with the curly brackets and the dollar, and then becomes a variable in the code. So this is a sort of standard scripting language. I'm not sure which scripting engine they've got. I think they've got the Postman one, but there is another scripting engine. So I'm just not familiar with the name of the scripting engine, but you can add a value in there. Okay, great. So you gave the thumbs up, so you're happy. Are there other questions? So you're saying you're struggling to use it on Ubuntu? We do have guys using Docker Compose on Ubuntu. I think that's the trickiest part on Ubuntu. You've got to get your Docker Compose working, and then you go into the folder and you use Docker Compose up. I'm not too familiar with Ubuntu. No, I have run Docker Compose on Windows and Ubuntu, and that Docker Compose up normally works. If you've got other Docker Compose images maybe running, so I'm not sure if you're having problems. So the question is from someone online. They are struggling to run to get this working in Ubuntu. So the first part is making sure that your Docker Compose is properly installed and running, and the second one is to make sure that you got the right Docker Compose image running, and you don't have other TTK images running. If you've already got TTK running, it's probably configured to use the same ports, and they're going to conflict. So maybe make sure that those aren't running, and then make sure that you've got the right PISP TTK sandbox installed and cloned, and then you go into the folder first, and then you do the Docker Compose. So just these are the right steps to follow. We've run them a few times. Maybe just go back and make sure that they're running properly. Maybe I can view your questions on Slack afterwards.
When I tried to change the UGX, the currency, I sent the request, but in actual sense, it returned the same euro. Is there something which could have gone wrong?
Did you save your edits? It's the only thing I can think of. Yeah, after you've edited the synchronized rules, you've got to save them. If you're getting internal error, that's the problem you've got to fix. You've got to work out why you're getting that error and fix that, and then you should get the right response. I think I need to come and see what's going on. So I can do that after the talk. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's not configured right, but something's not right. So the way the TTK works is those synchronized rules are configured as configuration for the TTK. So somehow it's not reading it, or it's not saving it, or something's not right, and we just got to drill down into that and work out why that sync response rule is not correct. Okay. Are there other questions? Okay, so I think that's it for the talk, but I'll come and help you, those guys who have still got problems. Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Once again, let us give him a round of applause. So today we are looking at MVP Phase 2. Now the facilitators are going to be looking at what you have. I'm going to call upon the facilitators led by Cleopatra to come and give you the next instructions. And kindly, you know, when something is being presented or there is a session, try to pay attention. Talking among ourselves, it's really not a good practice. Some of us are competing to be the best and others are competing to be the worst. When you want to be successful, it's not about you having the best product. You should have discipline as well. It is very important. We have seen people who are knowledgeable, they are intelligent, but are indisciplined and they have failed. Let us welcome Cleopatra.
Good morning, everybody. How are you today? Is the MVP working? Are you ready? Who wants to go first? So what we're going to do, we're going to call teams to the back, and you're going to present to us. Okay? Your core value proposition and the MVP. I don't want to see mock-ups. Okay? And I also don't want to see prototypes. Okay? Yeah, the MVP. Okay? Yeah. So, if you hear your team's name, come behind with your teammates, and we take it up from there. The rest, continue perfecting your documentation, the diagrams.
You know, the second day, we did interviews, team interviews. They were asking you what are your expectations and all that. And now this is the second last day of the hackathon. We are going to also do those interviews, how your experience, you're going to share with us. So as you speak with your facilitators, we will also be getting some teams to go and do those interviews, so you can prepare accordingly. Thank you.
Team X Home, you're up first. Team UPE, please come to the back. The achievers, come and see us at the back. The achievers, are you around? Tax on point. Come to the back. Simbula Tugende, please come to the back. Simbula Tugende.
Team HiPipo, come to the back.
Team Opportune, please come to the back.